With that, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Composers and Cocktails, a favorite Zoom pastime of us Volti fans. I'm your host, Cole Thomason-Redus, and I'm joined this evening with composers Anne Hege and Victoria Fraser. Welcome to you both. Also on the screen, we have some old faces, and by that I don't mean anything about age, but that you've seen them before, such as our illustrious maestro, Bob Geary. We've also got a new face on this evening, which is also a younger face, and that is our new executive director. Welcome, Giacomo. We're so thrilled to have you with us. And I must, of course, say hello to our former executive director, Barbara. Hello, Barbara. How are you this evening?
I am very well, thank you. And I remembered to unmute, but I'm still going to drink.
Well, yes, and thank you for prompting that. Anytime we have to tell Bob to unmute, everybody has to take a drink. And what are you drinking this evening, Barbara?
Just a simple vodka martini, my sort of easy go-to drink.
Simple martini. What kind of vodka are you enjoying?
Costco's finest, Kirkland.
Kirkland. And do you have that with a lemon twist, an olive? How do you, or is it just the liquid?
2 olives on a pretty little pick.
2 olives on a pretty little pick. That sounds like a Mark Twain song. 2 olives. And how is retirement treating you, Barbara? As she sits.
I'm almost starting to feel retired. I was very, very busy for all of October with a lamplighter show that I wrote and directed. And I did absolutely nothing this past week. I was just recovering from that. So I'm starting to feel maybe I am retired.
Wow. I hope you're enjoying it and having a good time, and I'm sure having daily vodka martinis.
Not daily, but frequent.
Oh, yeah. Bob, what is your drink of choice for the evening?
My drink of choice is, I forgot to get a drink, but I did have a cider last night. Does that count?
No, that does not count. All right, we'll talk to you later, Bob. Anne, what are you drinking this evening, and how are you tonight?
I'm good. You know, I'm going with an IPA, so not a cocktail.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Those are so popular these days. And how hoppy is this IPA? Is it one of those super hoppy ones?
It is. It is. It's the Elysian Space Dust. It's that one that's like very, very hoppy and beer-full.
And are you aware of why IPAs are called India Pale Ales and how they came to be?
No, maybe not.
So this was all about our wonderful friends, the Brits, who of course were colonizing India, and they found that when the beer arrived in India, it was stale and not drinkable. But if they upped the hop factor, it would act as a preservative, and so it would still be good by the time it got to India. I think it would probably taste much different than the IPA we drink today, because by the time it got to India, it probably just tasted like normal beer. So all those hipsters running around drinking their hopped up IPAs, you don't know what you're doing. But I'm glad that you're enjoying your IPA. And Victoria, what are you drinking this evening?
I'm just drinking water.
Did you not read the rules, Victoria?
I didn't read the instructions, I'm sorry.
Composers and water. Perhaps that could be a sequel to this event, Composers and Water. Well, we're so glad to have you both. I welcome everybody throughout the evening to go ahead and unmute and ask a question or make a comment, or you may also put your comments in the chat window, and we'll do our best to have a look at that. We are here tonight to discuss the upcoming performances by Volti. And if you do not already have your tickets to such a grand event, you better get them before they all go. And here is the link for that. And while you're on there getting your tickets, if you happen to hit on the donate button, just love you for that. We are, of course, a nonprofit organization, and as you all know, the arts in the Bay Area are going through some difficult times. So we do appreciate every single donation that comes our way, no matter what size it may be. We're happy to take $5. We are also quite happy to take $500,000. So if any of you have that lying around, go ahead and send that over to us. You can do that at voltisf.org/donate, and that is now in the chat window as well. So Bob, tell us about this performance we have coming up, and everyone else can ignore the fact that he already told us about that 10 minutes ago.
So this is really new ground for Volti. I think a couple of times in our history, we've done things with electronics. And it was our planning committee, which at that time was Barbara, Sid, Mark Wingus, and I. Sid is here. Mark is not with us, I guess. And I don't know if there was, Barbara, maybe you remember, was there an impulse that directed us towards electronics? Was it that Mark wanted to write something for electronics? I know that was a thing for him because he's never done much with it either. But whatever the genesis was, we developed it for quite a while, reviewed a lot of scores, looked at a lot of composers' work, and then assembled them. And as we love to do new music, and this has been Anne Hege's specialty for, or at least one of her specialties since really before Princeton, since Mills, Anne. But
yeah, since about 2000, yeah.
I remember being at a recital of yours at Mills College, and you had speakers and musicians up on the tops of the hills, and all kinds of things going on. So it ended up that we have as I mentioned a few minutes ago, that of the 5 composers, 4 of them are women composers. This was not by design. It's just that there are that many talented women out there working with music and electronics. So that's a very nice thing to feel that's happening, and those folks are being heard. And then, as I mentioned, also Mark Wingus, who is our resident composer, is working on his large work. I think it's pretty much finished now, called Yggdrasil, and this is a Norse mythological piece, and Yggdrasil is the tree of life, and he's written a piece called The Guardians of Yggdrasil, and kind of how we human beings are helping preserve the tree of life, or perhaps not doing as good a job as we could in typical Mark Wingus compositional style, but now with electronics. And so it's been for Volti has been an a cappella group. I think some of you heard me say this before. When I was starting out in my conducting and music career at university and that kind of thing, the electronics were so unreliable, and so many performances I went to had, suddenly the electronics dropped out, or even if it were just microphones. And that was before circuitry got so advanced that it's highly reliable now. But I sort of said, well, I don't ever want to have one of my performances ruined because the electricity went off, but I'm changing, and things are different. That was a long time ago. So anyway, we've been in rehearsal now 4 or 5 times, and both Anne and Victoria, the 2 composers with us today, have been at those rehearsals, each of them twice. So they're helping us with both the staging, and that's another thing. Several of the pieces, really, I guess just Anne's and Victoria's, are using space and movement in space, and so singers are practicing not just singing, but in the case of Anne's piece, they're memorizing some of it, and in the case of Victoria's piece, they're using the whole performance space to create some expressions of the poem or the meaning of the piece that I hope Victoria will speak about. And it's been really, after I think the second rehearsal, when we had started to get a handle on just the musical elements, in rehearsal, we started to play the underscore of electronics and begin to practice with that. And that's it's both rewarding in all the sounds that it introduces to the environment that it complement or are the other side of the acoustical event that the concert will be. And I remember at one point Celeste Winan said, as we work on part of Mark Wingus's piece, that it was really rewarding to work on it and to begin to hear the composer's broader dimensions of not just our vocal participation, but the environment they're creating. And I do invite any of you on here to come into a Wednesday night rehearsal. I think your appreciation of the performance itself probably would be greatly enhanced by having a little earlier exposure. Yating came to Wednesday's rehearsal. Yating is one of our board members. Maybe you can speak about that too. And I'll step back because Cole he's probably about to say, Bob, that's enough. And I'll go
I am
on
Bob,
mute.
but thank you for your lengthy answer. We much appreciate hearing about the upcoming concerts from you, our conductor, music director, and founder. And you're still talking. And now we're going to move on over to our first composer of the evening, Anne Hege. Anne, tell us about the piece that you have written for Volti.
Okay, so the piece is titled Becoming Within. And this has been a dream of mine for a long time, to write a piece for chorus and what I would consider a laptop orchestra. So this is an ensemble that I've written for since since 2006, when I started my graduate work at Princeton. And that was the place where they founded laptop orchestras. And what's specific about this form is that there are multiple laptops, and each laptop is its own sounding station. So each laptop has a computer, speakers, and usually a controller. So in my case, the controllers are these. Oh wait, can you see? Oh, there you go. So this is a Game Track tether controller, and some of it I think you can see. These are originally made for a golf game, and you would pretend to hit a golf ball like this way with a club. But really, what they're amazingly reliable controllers, and they send X, Y, and Z axis information for each of the tether lines. So what I'm really interested in is thinking about electronics connecting with the human body. So what are ways that I can write music where I'm basically building instruments, designing new instruments for electronics that are related to movement and related to our bodies, the way singing is related to our body, and the way that actually all instruments are related to some kind of physical movement. And so in this piece, you're going to see these tether controllers attached to a rope. And the rope is lifted and pulled by half the chorus. And the rope becomes what I would consider an ensemble controller. So this is something where the ensemble plays the rope together. So they have to move in a kind of unison, because they're going to move each other, because they're all pulling at the same rope. And the piece is in 4 separate parts. So there's different kinds of electronics. Sue Boland had asked, what does it mean, electronics? In this case, so these are live electronics, meaning that there are samples that are being played, but they're being triggered and controlled volume-wise based on the movement of these tether lines. So in the first and fourth part of my piece, there is machine learning happening. So like a form of AI, where I train a kind of 3D mixing board. So depending on where the tethers are in space, they will play different samples at different volumes, and they will kind of mix between the sample space. In the second and third, there are more kind of discrete programming. So things are triggered at certain moments in different times. And the purpose of the piece is to kind of explore this space where the singing, the chorus, and the electronics almost become a cyborgian instrument as a whole. So that this chorus is singing into the sound of the electronics. In the beginning, there's this way that they are kind of resonating this B-flat basic drone that has different harmonics depending on how the rope is moved. And that there's ways that we can then respond to that as singers, and how we resonate the tone in our mouths and in our bodies. And so there's this way that I'm asking for a lot of listening and And in the whole, what I want from the piece is this idea of the way that we live with this technology, that the technology isn't controlling us, and maybe we aren't necessarily controlling it, but we are growing and listening through these tools that surround us. So that's what I'm interested in.
Very awesome. Now, Anne, I had the honor of conducting the premiere of your laptopera,
Yes.
Geary's. That was just two years ago now. Yeah, 2 years
It was
ago.
in 22. Yeah.
And I know many of our Volti singers performed in that, and many of our friends of Volti attended that and probably remember the work. And so we're able to relate to what you were talking about in terms of those controls and the ways in which music is created in this sound world. Should we expect to hear similar sounds to what we heard in the Furies, or is this completely different?
Some of it is similar. Like part 3 has some chordal stuff happening, depending on where the rope is moving. Some of it is not so similar. Like part 3 is a lot of sine tones and kind of playing with this kind of array of sine tones that happen. It's definitely different, and one of the things I've really loved about this project is that I really stepped into this is an incredible chorus that could sing complicated music at the same time as performing with these instruments. So one of the things I designed is that the group playing the rope has simpler parts, but then half the group has what I would define as a more soloistic part happening simultaneously in different sections. So I really tried to step into that there's some exciting choral music happening along with it. That's pretty complicated. Yeah.
Very cool. I cannot wait to experience this new work commissioned by Volti. And of course, this is not your first Volti commission. We had the privilege of having your work performed by Volti during the pandemic, where we pivoted from the stage to Zoom and had a whole season of performances online. So we're actually going to listen to an excerpt from that piece of yours. Do you want to set this up for us, Anne?
Yeah, so this that piece was called "It Sounds Like All My Dreams," and it was written in the summer of 2020. So it was like right in the beginning of the pandemic, and it was really a response to I guess kind of how isolated it felt, especially right at the beginning. And so the section you're going to see is it starts with a virtual chorus, but the virtual chorus gets like a little bit of I got to use the technology to kind of create a little bit more visual splendor with a virtual chorus, and then it kind of transferred into what felt like these worlds in my life at that time, which was being online in rehearsal and then coming out and looking up at the redwoods that were behind my house and having this kind of amazing spaciousness, but literally 1 minute after I would shut down my computer. So that was the inspiration for this section, and this is, I think, the 7th and 8th section of that piece out of 9.
Cool. All right, so here we have an excerpt from the 2021, what year was that?
I think it was 2020. I think it was the fall of 2020.
2020 performance of our first, and that was your first commission with us, is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, our first commission of Anne Hege. Enjoy.
Certain piece. The next concept. It's like.
That's such a peaceful ending and such a remembrance of a time that is thankfully behind us. But what a time that was when the world stopped and kept going all at once, and we were all stuck in our homes, hopefully enjoying redwood trees and taking in as much Zoom as we could stand, and often more than we could. And what's it like to hear that again?
It really takes me back to that time. It really, I feel this immediate, it had such wonderful points of being home and having the opportunity to do that piece, but also the limitedness of not being able to make music in person. It's just, there are a lot of feelings around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An interesting question from our maestro. Brava, Anne. I would love to hear your thoughts on the nexus of nature and technology. I know you have a history as a backpacker and outdoors-oriented person. What say you to that, Anne?
Oh, I feel like, I guess for me, the meeting point is in the body. I feel like I experience nature as such a physical experience of, you know, what it smells like and what the air feels like and what altitude feels like, and it's usually through a lot of exertion um, and so in for some reason, in a lot of ways, I really have this desire to pull the technology and the body together in these very um, clear clear ways of feeling, um, like feeling that the technology helps me connect with other people and with the natural world. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Very interesting answer, Anne, and that very interesting question, Bob. For those of you that would like to find out more about Anne Hege and her works, her website is annehege.com, and that is in your chat window. Thanks so much, Anne. And hello, Victoria. Let's talk to you now for a bit. Lovely to have you this evening, even though you're drinking water. But I would love to have you talk about the piece that you've written for Volti. And for those that think Victoria looks a little familiar, Victoria used to be one of our sopranos. In fact, we were delighted by her high C's a few concert seasons ago. We are missing your voice greatly, Victoria, but so glad that we still get to express your voice in a different way. So tell us about the piece you've written.
I just first have to say that, Anne, that piece was my first gig with Volti, was singing your piece in the pandemic. So that's a fun little circle. Yeah, so my piece for this concert is called Lux Aeterna, and it draws on, yeah, the text from the Requiem, Lux Aeterna, but I only borrow maybe 5 words from it, just Lux Aeterna Luceat and Lux Perpetua Luceat, eternal light shines, perpetual light shines. And the whole piece is really expresses this beautiful phenomenon in the cosmos, in our physical universe, that day and night, light and dark are not, they're not phenomena that follow one another the way that we think of it on Earth as day follows night follows day, but they're simultaneous. They're always happening everywhere all at once. Day and night are happening on Earth right now at the same time. And I find that to be a really beautiful idea, and it reminds me so much of so many spiritual ideas from all over human history of yin and yang, light and dark, yeah, evil and good, all tied in one. And so, yeah, a lot of the music that I write is based in something cosmological like this. And so this piece is with light and dark, entirely founded on an astronomical unit, which changes day to day, but is 93 point something million miles, the distance of the sun from the Earth. And it does, I was just looking up the distances. When I wrote the piece, the sun was 93.64 million miles away. Today, it's 92.26 million miles away, but at its farthest, it can be as far as 94.5 million miles. So there's this cool fluctuation, this dance between the planets. But this 93.64 was how far the sun was when I was writing this piece a couple years ago. And so that 9364 is actually heard throughout the piece in a rhythmic motive. And so you hear 9 beats, 3 beats, 6 beats, 4 beats, and it's this sort of ticking pattern in the background of both the fixed media electronic track, and some of the singers also take that, and it comes in and out of the foreground and background. But then the text, this Lux Aeterna Luceat, Lux Perpetua Luceat, creates a sort of, I wanted a piece that almost didn't change, that really just stepped out of time and dwelled in this constancy. And so it's a little bit of a, I don't know, I think of it as like you step into a glow and you sort of live in this glow. Yeah, I find a lot of this, I find a lot of spirituality in science, which is part of why I took this little bit of religious text and sort of stripped it a little bit of anything that defines it as religious, but really celebrates this beautiful spiritual universe that we live in. Yeah, that gets you started.
That is very cool. Now you of course you sang with Volti for a few seasons, and so got to really know the other singers and their voices. Did you take that knowledge into account as you were writing this piece? Is this really specifically for the singers of Volti?
Yeah, absolutely. So this piece is a little bit of a reworking. I originally wrote it for solo voice and fixed media, and then rewrote it for Volti to include these 16 singers. And I absolutely had, my friends' voices in mind when I was putting it together and hearing it, having like Andrea's beautiful floaty high notes and Jessica's sort of more full soloistic sound, and our wonderful tenors and basses as a sort of grounding drone. It was cool to really write knowing exactly the colors that I was playing with.
Very cool. And of course, you are no longer a singer with Volti because you are moving, or you have moved. Have you already moved?
If you could see behind this Volti background, you would just see boxes. I'm just living in a sea of boxes. So I'm still in San Francisco for 2 more days. We move on Monday.
And where are you off to?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. We're hearing a lot about Pennsylvania these days.
Yes.
I suppose you're not yet able to vote in Pennsylvania.
Nope.
Too bad. We should vote on Tuesday.
I know, I wish. Would have been helpful.
Indeed. That's all I'll say about politics, other than especially with Halloween coming up. Everybody protect your cats. All right, Victoria, we've got a lullaby, a Ukrainian lullaby of yours to enjoy this evening. Could you tell us about this piece?
Yeah, this was a piece that I wrote for a big benefit concert in the months after the Ukraine war began. And I had a choir to write for and a baritone soloist. That's who we had volunteer their time. And so it's an existing Ukrainian lullaby melody and text, and I just sort of built a soundscape around it. And I liked the idea of, lullabies we always think of as female voices, and I think especially sort of mezzo low voices. And so it was fun to hear a low male voice sing a lullaby.
Very cool. This is an absolutely gorgeous and haunting piece. So everybody enjoy this Ukrainian lullaby by Victoria Fraser. Whoops, let's redo that. Hold on. You don't need to see my whole desktop. Okay, try that again. It's like I've never done this before. Okay, here we go. That was Lullaby by Victoria Fraser, composed in 2022. And that is a beautiful and haunting reminder of the horrific fact that over 2.5 years later, thousands of children are still going to sleep every night to the sounds of war. Thank you for that gorgeous piece, Victoria. Bob, maybe we might do that piece at Volti sometime. It is so gorgeous. I could listen to that daily.
Yeah, very, very moving, Victoria. Really communicated beautifully.
Thank you.
Makes me sad.
Yeah.
Oh, let's all make Bob happy. Everyone take a drink. By the way, I this evening am, I generally have a nice gin and tonic or perhaps a whiskey of some sort during composers and cocktails. This evening I have spiked my tea, my jasmine Earl Grey tea from the Russian River Tea Company with a lovely Hendrick's gin, which they call the Grand Cabaret. And it adds just a delightful fruitiness to your tea. So everyone, tomorrow morning as you're having your tea, go ahead and pour something special in there. Let's say, oh, by the way, for those that would like to find out more about Victoria's compositions and as well as her life as a soprano, her website is victoriafrasersoprano.com, and that is in the chat window as well. Thank you so much, Victoria. And I'd like to say hello again to our brand spanking new executive director, Giacomo. How are you this evening?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are y'all?
You know, I forgot, did I already ask you what you're drinking this evening?
You haven't, but I am taking a page out of your book, and I'm actually having coffee with coffee liqueur poured into it. It was a new coffee liqueur that I found. I forget. Oh, it's actually St. George. They have a coffee liqueur that I poured in, and it is delicious.
I have got a bottle of that right over in my bar, and it is delicious and strong. So those of you that are caffeine sensitive, be careful not to drink that too late at night, unless of course you are maybe at San Francisco Opera this month to see Tristan and Isolde, which closes on Tuesday. And I highly suggest you pre-order your Irish coffees for the first and second intermission to help you survive those 4 hours and 44 minutes. Ever there was a composer that needed an editor. Giacomo, how are you feeling coming into your first concert season as the new executive director of Volti?
It's been a wonderful experience, and I have to say, the thing that has been most rewarding about it has been this exceptional community, whether it's the opportunity to meet brilliant composers like Anne and Victoria and just get to have, one-on-one conversations, or the talents of all the singers, or this guy named Bob Geary, who I guess has been around the block a couple times. I don't know. But a few. But I'm finding it incredibly rewarding. I have to also shout out, it has been a relatively painless transition, thanks to the incredible organization and the brilliance of one Ms. Barbara Hero, who, despite her best attempts to fully retire, like they say in The Godfather, every time I get out, they keep pulling me back in. So, Barbara, thank you for making this an incredible experience so far.
You know, Barbara's a little Godfather looking right now.
Barbara understood the assignment.
I did. Giacomo, it's been such a joy working with you. I wish we could both do the job somehow under the budget constraints, because you have so many skills that I don't have. I might have a skill or two that you don't, but I don't think that's true. You're going to be great. You are great. It's been fun doing this transition. It has.
We're not letting you go that fast. So
okay, we'll see.
See, you said the magic words. We just have to figure out the budget constraint parts. And so that's another lovely reminder to everyone, voltisf.org/donate. And you can have Barbara back.
We're going to raffle off Barbara. As a board member, I can attest to the fact that it really has been such a seamless and painless and fun transition. So thank you so much to you both for your work. Barbara, thank you for your decades of work with Volti. We will miss you, but obviously we still get to see you. And Giacomo, we're just blessed to have you along for the ride. Thank you. I'm going to go back to our composers for a minute. A little fun we like to have here at Composers and Cocktails is me throwing some trivia questions at you all. So, Anne, you have a very similar sounding last name to the composer Jake Hege. So your questions this evening are about composer Jake Hege. Victoria, although there's an I missing from your last name, I can't say your last name without thinking of Fraser Crane. So your questions this evening are about the TV character Fraser Crane. And if you don't know the answer to your question, you are welcome to ask the audience or phone a friend. So Anne, let's start with you. At what company and in what position was Jake Hege working when he was commissioned to write Dead Man Walking?
Oh, I don't know. I'll poll the audience.
All right, audience, any guesses, or do you know? I bet Sid probably knows the answer to this one.
The opera is what Sid says.
Correct. So
SF
Jake Hege was a marketing associate at San Francisco Opera, and they're like, "Oh, you can compose music." So there we have it. And Victoria, on what show did the character of Fraser Crane debut?
I didn't think I would know the answer to this because I've never seen the show, but Frasier.
No,
Oh,
that is
Seinfeld, right?
Nope, that's even more wrong. The correct answer is
I'm just digging my grave.
The correct answer is Cheers. Fraser Crane was a somewhat lovable psychiatrist working in Boston, and he eventually meets the wonderful Dr. Willis Sterling Crane, played by Phoebe Newirth, and they get married, and it's great fun to watch that relationship fall apart. Of course, he then moves to Seattle and has his own show called Frasier, which is now in a reboot series available on the Paramount, Peacock, I don't know, one of those things. Okay, and back to you. What internationally renowned mezzo-soprano was very instrumental in the commissioning of large-scale works by Jake Hege?
I just don't know. Look, was it? But is she a mezzo?
Flick is the correct answer. Yes, that's Frederica von Stade. There are a number of gorgeous art songs that were written by Jake Hege for Flick, which then led to a number of operas coming to the stage and continually coming to the stage. Okay, Victoria, back over to you. Who was the youngest character on the show Frasier?
I'm going to throw that out to the audience. No idea.
Alrighty, audience, who's the youngest character on Frasier? Eddie the dog is correct, Giacomo. Very well done. And I totally thought I was going to catch people up with that question. You are quick, sir. Excellent. Alrighty, Anne, one last question for you. What is the most performed opera of the 21st century in the current world of opera?
Dead Man Walking?
Dead Man Walking is the correct answer. And I guess technically that would be the 20th century because it was actually premiered in 2000, which technically is still part of the 20th century. So there was a flaw in my question there, but you still got the answer right. As a boy at San Francisco Opera, I'm so often asked, what is Dead Man Walking coming back? I know the answer to that, but I can't tell you all. Okay, and Victoria, back over to you. In the show Frasier, what alcoholic beverage is Frasier most often drinking?
Audience?
No, he's not drinking audience.
No.
Does anyone in the audience know? Anyone?
Is it a martini? No.
It is not a martini. It is not a gin and tonic. It is not Eddie the dog. Oh no, that's a different answer. Frasier is eating people's cats. He's eating their dogs. No, Barbara, it's not wine, though that I guess would be like the second most frequently drank beverage by Frasier. The correct answer is sherry. Every time the brother Niles comes over, they always delight in a glass of sherry. All right, so there are our questions about Jake Hege and Fraser Crane, neither of which have anything to do with composers Anne Hege and Victoria Fraser. Of course, Volti has lots to do with them. Their new works will be premiered at our upcoming concerts on November 16th, 17th, 18th. Am I getting that right? And December 5th? I think that's right. You can, of course, always go onto our website, voltisf.org, to keep up with the latest things, all Volti. And in the chat window is that link for your tickets. You may also purchase your tickets at the door. And of course, while there, go ahead and click on that donate button, or just go directly to voltisf.org, where our volunteers are standing by, waiting eagerly with bated breath for your $500,000 donation. And a huge thank you in advance. With that, I see that most people's glasses are empty. My glass is almost empty and is definitely not hot anymore. So I think it's time we all called adieu and go fill up our glasses and enjoy the rest of our evening. Bob, thank you as always for being with us this evening. Giacomo and Barbara, it's great to have you both on the screen. To our singers, thank you for joining us. For our audience members and friends, thank you so much for being here with us for Composers and Cocktails this evening, featuring Anne Hege and Victoria Fraser. I've been your host, Cole Thomason-Redus, a former singer of Volti and a board member of Volti, and the son of a former singer of Volti and the son of a former board member of Volti. So I am a second generation on both of those. Always a pleasure to be here with you guys. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing
Bravo,
you
Cole.
later.
Thank you, Cole.
Good
Good
night,
job, Cole. Appreciate it. Hey, bye, everybody.
Hi, thanks.
Bye-bye.